Well, welcome to today's Apple-tastic RootsMagic webinar. My name is Michael Booth, and I'm Vice President of RootsMagic and one of its developers. And also with us this afternoon is the Roots magician himself, Bruce Busby. And Bruce, of course, is the President of RootsMagic and its author. Now, this afternoon's topic is dedicated to a small but growing group of RootsMagic users. It's dedicated to all those users that have an Apple Mac computer. And there are more of you out there than you may realize. And although RootsMagic is designed for Microsoft Windows, we're going to be looking at a variety of methods to run it on your Mac even without using Microsoft Windows at all. First, I'd like to do a quick poll. How do you currently run RootsMagic software on your Mac? Okay, go ahead and you can choose I don't have a Mac, I don't run RootsMagic software on my Mac, I use Apple Boot Camp, I use VMware Fusion or Parallels, or I use Crossover or Wine. Okay, here are the results. Looks like 22% of you don't have a Mac, and so I imagine you're here to learn because you have a family member, maybe a son or a daughter or a cousin or someone in your family who has a Mac, and you want to be able to share your data and have them run RootsMagic on their machines. 61%, a majority of you, don't run RootsMagic software on your Mac. And none of you use Boot Camp. 15% use Fusion or Parallels, and only 2% of you use Crossover or Wine. So let's go ahead and close down this poll. Okay, I want to bring your attention to a web page that we've put together. On our website, you can go to rootsmagic.com/Mac. And this has all the information. The links that we're going to refer to in this presentation are all here on this page. And we get a lot of questions about running RootsMagic on a Mac. In fact, it's probably one of our more common technical support questions. And so we put it this page to make the information available. Okay, first question. Do RootsMagic, Personal Historian, Family Atlas, or your other products run on a Mac? The answer is yes, but with help. In fact, we have many happy Mac users of our Family Tree software. However, all of our software is currently designed to run on the Windows operating system, and that's where the help comes in. Okay, and we have put in links to the different types of help to run our software on your Mac. Now, you need to keep in mind that all Macs that have been built since 2006, through the last 5 years, they use Intel microprocessors. In fact, the same microprocessors as Windows PCs. This means that you can install the Windows operating system on your Mac and run any Windows software. But there are also some non-Windows options available. The first option is Apple Boot Camp, and nobody mentioned in the poll that they use Apple Boot Camp. Apple Boot Camp is basically a free program put up by Apple that allows you to install Windows on your Mac, okay, but you have to reboot your computer to switch from one to the other. So you're going to boot up either in Windows or boot up into Mac OS. And they're going to be completely separate file systems, as if you had two completely separate computers. And because of that, a lot of people don't like to use the Apple Boot Camp option because it's sort of inconvenient to have to reboot your computer and choose, okay, I want to boot up as a Windows machine. Oh, I need to shut down. I want to boot up as a Mac machine. Okay? And so I'm not surprised to see that that is the least used option. Okay, it does not allow you to run Mac and Windows at the same time. You have to choose one or the other. You do have to have a Windows CD, so you do have to actually have a copy of Windows that you can install on your Mac in order for that to work. But Boot Camp does have limited support by the manufacturer. Okay, meaning that Apple does answer questions and help you out in installing Windows on your computer using Boot Camp. The next alternative is Parallels Desktop. Okay, now Parallels Desktop, it costs $80, so $79.95. And I'll go ahead and click right here to go to the website. It's just parallels.com. And Parallels, it allows you to make a computer inside of a computer. This is called virtualization, where basically you have a Windows computer that runs inside of your Mac computer. So you can have both running at the same time. Okay, so you can run Mac and Windows at the same time. It still requires that you have a copy of Windows, but there is technical support by the manufacturer. Similar to Parallels is a product called VMware Fusion. It also costs $79.95, and it allows you to run the Mac and Windows at the same time. It requires a Windows CD, so you're actually installing Windows inside of this virtual computer. And it is also supported by the manufacturer. There's another option called VirtualBox, which is free, and it allows you to run Mac and Windows at the same time, requires the Windows CD, but because it's a free program, there's no tech support by the manufacturer. Now, these three options, Parallels, VMware Fusion, and VirtualBox. Okay, what does this mean when you're dealing with a virtual computer? Okay, I happen to have Fusion installed on my Mac here, so I'm going to just minimize this. And you'll notice this is the presentation that I was using at the beginning of this presentation, and this is actually in Windows. I'll hit Escape, and you'll see, ta-da, this is actually a Windows program, computer basically inside of my computer inside of my Mac. Oh. Okay, so this is the full copy of Windows running inside of my Mac, and so I can have any Windows software. I have Windows 7 installed here. I've got Microsoft Office, and I have RootsMagic, I have Personal Storing and Family Atlas, and Photoshop, and some other programs running here on the Mac. Now, to install RootsMagic here on my virtual Windows computer, I would do it exactly the same way as if I had a full Windows computer. I would either insert my RootsMagic CD, or I would go to rootsmagic.com I would go to rootsmagic.com and download it and just follow the same instructions to install it on this virtual Windows machine. Okay, and once I do so, I now will have the little RootsMagic icon here in my taskbar. I click on that, and RootsMagic starts up. Runs just as if it were on a Windows machine. Okay, now here's one of the downsides of this. This is running as if it's its own virtual machine, and it even has its own virtual hard drive. So if I go here and I click Open, and I want to open a RootsMagic file, it's going to have a documents folder here, but this is basically not my Mac documents folder, and it's not going to be my Mac pictures folder. In order to have it share files between this Windows computer and my Apple computer, I have to set up some file sharing and go through some of that to get all that set up. But the great thing about this is pretty much any Windows software can run on a Mac using this because you have actual Windows installed on here. That's also a downside. I know people are concerned about viruses and malware, things like that, and your virtual machine is susceptible to viruses and malware, just like any Windows computer would be. So you want to make sure that you have some sort of antivirus software installed on this virtual computer. Now, to show you again what I mean by virtual computer, I can click on this minus sign, and I'm back in my Mac. I can click on it again, and I'm in my PC. I can click on this green plus sign, and it minimizes this to a window. And now you'll see that I am running, here's my Windows, and I can run it alongside any of my Mac applications. So I can just bring up iPhoto. So I can run iPhoto and my Windows machine all at the same time. Now I have my resolution set really low. I have my resolution set really low for the sake of the webinar. But that's basically what we're doing. We're just running Windows, a computer inside of a computer. Okay, and this is using Fusion, and this was the most common method, according to that quick poll at the beginning, that people are using to run RootsMagic on their Mac. Most people don't know that there is another way that has its own advantages and can be a bit cheaper. The next two options in the list, oh, was there a question, Bruce?
Yeah, there was. Somebody was asking, does having a virtual machine on your Mac slow down the Mac?
Oh, that's a very good question. Having a virtual machine on your Mac, does it slow down the Mac? The virtual machine requires its own processor and resources. So if you have a newer Mac, it's probably a multi-core processor, meaning it has multiple processors in it. But it will require its own processor and its own amount of memory. Now, keep in mind your Mac OS will want about 2 gigabytes of RAM of memory in order to run comfortably, and Windows 7 will want about 2 gigabytes of RAM to run comfortably. So you're looking at, in order to run both Windows and Mac at the same time without noticing any big difference in performance, you will need at least 4 gigabytes of memory, and you'll want a multi-core processor. The more processors, the better. Okay. But yeah, that's one of the big.
Yeah,
Oh,
I was going to say we also have another question about which versions of Windows can be used. Can they use Windows XP instead of Windows 7?
Oh, yeah, good question. All of these virtualization programs, VirtualBox, Fusion, Parallels, they can run older copies of Windows. So they'll run even Windows 95. In fact, they'll run DOS from 20 years ago, or you could even run Linux or other operating systems inside of a virtual computer. And that's a good option for people who, you may have an older PC that's just collecting dust or you threw it away. but you may still have the Windows XP. You may still have the Windows XP CD that came with it. And so you can use that Windows XP and serial number and install it here on Fusion. Okay. Any other questions about these virtual computers?
No, that's pretty close to all we have on those.
Okay. Good questions.
We do have a couple of people that have commented that they can actually get Parallels and Fusion cheaper than the $79.95 when they find it on sale. That price that we list there is the retail price. So yeah, if you do look around, you may be able to find those on sale for a better price.
Yeah, in fact, if you just Google, when I was buying Fusion, I just did a Google search for Fusion coupon, and I found a coupon for $20 off. So yeah, these are all listed as the full retail price, and you shouldn't have to pay that full price if you can help it. Okay, the next two options on here do not require Windows at all. You'll see there's a check mark under no Windows CD required. And those are Wine and Crossover Mac. Now, let's just start out with Wine. It is a free program. Wine is an open source program which allows some Windows software to run on your Mac. In other words, Wine was written from scratch. There's no Windows involved. People from scratch, they went basically recreated the important parts of Windows that allow software to run and put it together in this program called Wine. Now it's free, and if you can install it on your computer, it will allow you to run some Windows software on your Mac. Okay, and I say some, these others with a virtual computer, because that has the full copy of Windows on there, pretty much anything will run on them. Wine and Crossover, because they are basically making their own Windows, a recreation of Windows, they do not support every program will run, and not every program will run well on Wine or Crossover. But as it turns out, all of our software does. It's been tested, it's been looked at by many users to run great under either of these solutions. Wine is free, but like VirtualBox being a free program, there is no tech support for it. And that can be an issue with Wine, because Wine is very technical and it can be very complicated to install and configure on your computer. To give you an idea, I am a computer programmer and I couldn't figure it out. I mean, I probably could have figured it out with enough days and hours looking at it and figuring it out, but it wasn't worth it, my time, to do that. So there's another option called Crossover. And what Crossover did is it's a commercial company that took Wine, which was an open source program, and then they packaged it. They made it very easy, very friendly to install, and most importantly, they do provide tech support for it. Okay, so if you have any questions or problems, you can contact them and they'll help you out. But the support and the ease of use comes at a minimal cost, and that is $39.95. Now keep in mind, you do not have to have Windows to run this. So unlike these others where you're going to have this cost plus the cost of Windows, all you need is Crossover or perhaps Wine to run RootsMagic and the other software on your Mac. Now, because this isn't a virtual computer, it's more of a translator, it means that you're protected from all those security flaws and viruses and other issues that people are afraid of when it comes to installing Windows on their Mac. We hear from a lot of people who are like, oh, I really want to run RootsMagic on my Mac, but I just don't want to install Windows on there. I just want to keep it clean and not install any Windows. And that is completely possible using Wine or Crossover. And Crossover would definitely be the preferred option because of that tech support. We put a little star next to it. If you follow this link, and this is only on our website, but you follow this link and it will take you to the Crossover website, because Crossover is made by another company. We don't make or provide technical support for Crossover. But this will take you to the company that makes it, CodeWeavers, and down here you can buy Crossover at 25% off. So instead of $39.95, it's $29.96. Okay, and so that's just one of the nice things that we arranged with the CodeWeavers people, is to offer this discount to our users if they followed that link from our website to theirs. Okay, now how do you install Crossover on your Mac? First thing you want to do is to go up here where it says download Crossover Mac trial. Go ahead and download that. I'm not going to download it here because it's about a 60 megabyte download, so I don't want to waste your time looking at it for 2 or 3 minutes as it installs. So I'm going to look at, this is what I downloaded. And so once you download it, and here we go. I'll move this Fusion out of the way. And here's Crossover, the installer. And it has this Crossover icon and the arrow, and then your Mac Applications folder. And all you need to do is go over here, hold down the Crossover, hold down your mouse button over the Crossover icon, and drag it over here into Applications. Nope. And that is how you install Crossover. And when I'm done with that, I can just unmount the little Crossover installation. And now I will have the Crossover icon will be down here in my dock. Okay, so I can, if I run this, run Crossover, the first thing it'll ask is, come up and it'll ask if I want to run any existing software, or if I want to install Windows software, to run any installed software. Okay, so you have full access to here. You can do settings and programs and all of that, but most of the time you will not use this screen. Okay, I'm going to close this down and show you what I mean. Okay, we could either just install RootsMagic at this point from our RootsMagic CD, or download it from the website, and Crossover will take it and configure it, and it'll all just work. But one easy way to do it is on this same website that RootsMagic links to. There is a link that says install RootsMagic 4 now. If I click right here, and I'll say yes, I do want to launch this, it downloads what's called a crosstie. And this is made by Crossover, and it's basically an automated installer for RootsMagic. And it says up here, I'm going to install RootsMagic, and it's going to download the installer off of our website, and it's going to also it says right here, it's also going to install core fonts, the Flash, ActiveX Control, Internet Explorer, Microsoft XML parser, and so on. These are not necessary to run RootsMagic. These are more for your convenience. The Internet Explorer and the Flash 10 ActiveX Control are mostly there for the web search feature in RootsMagic. The web search will work in Crossover without these, but by including them, it just makes it a little easier so you don't have to install Flash later on. And if you use a website that uses Flash like Ancestry.com, then you'll want to have this installed for you. So I'm just going to click Install. Oops, the screen's a little small, so it doesn't know what to. I got to get onto the button without. There we go. So now it's creating a bottle, which is what it does in the background. And it has downloaded RootsMagic, Internet Explorer, and Flash, and it's just pulling all the pieces together. It's going to give me a few little prompts, and when it does that, I'm just going to say yes, next, next, while it does its thing.
So while this is installing, there's a couple of questions that have come in.
Yeah.
A couple of questions, especially having to do with Explorer. One, can you run RootsMagic with Firefox instead of Explorer? And doesn't running Explorer open up the Mac for viruses?
Good questions. The answer is no. It doesn't open up the Mac to viruses because even though you have Internet Explorer there, in the background it's not Windows, so it's not Mac. It's like a fish isn't going to catch a human disease, or vice versa. For the most part, there are a few cross-species viruses and whatnot, but for the most part, it's not. It's the underlying biology and the fact that even though it has Internet Explorer, beneath it all, it's still a Mac. So the virus can't. There isn't anything for the virus to do. It's in a completely different organism. So yeah, that's a good question, but it's not going to cause any problems.
Okay, and the question about using Firefox instead of Explorer, RootsMagic basically has its own browser control in there, so you're not actually running a separate standalone browser there. There's a couple of questions about the crossover itself. Does it work with Lion? Does the license agreement allow it to be installed on more than one computer? And is that price a one-off cost or an ongoing annual cost?
Good questions. It does work on Lion, and for those of you who aren't familiar with it, Lion is just the name for the latest version of the Mac operating system. In fact, that's what I'm running right now. This is Lion, and so all of this is running. Okay, that was the first question about Lion. Second question was about, I guess, the cost. The cost will get you support updates for a certain period of time, and so after that period of time, your support runs out, and you'd have to just renew it to keep getting support and updates for Crossover. But Crossover itself will continue to work. It's just if you want to be able to download updates to it, you'll need to pay for those after your subscription period runs out. Oh, and then the third question was on multiple machines. I am not certain what the policy is on installing Crossover on multiple machines. You'd need to contact CodeWeavers, who makes it, to ask that question. So now it's installing RootsMagic. It's downloading the whole place database. And keep in mind, you don't, like I said, you don't need to go through all these troubles of installing the Internet Explorer and Flash and these fonts, because RootsMagic will work just fine, plain vanilla, on Crossover without them. These are just mostly for that web search. If you do encounter a website like Ancestry that requires Flash, it won't work unless you have that installed. And it's just installing the place database. And now I can click, it'll say launch RootsMagic, and I click finish. And now it's actually, let me just shut this down so we can close down crossover. Okay. And this is just finishing up, and now it's all done, and it's installed RootsMagic. And the icons will now appear under Finder. Okay, so if you're under Finder and you're looking at under Applications, go to Applications, and you can start crossover, and you'll see it. You'll see it there. Now, you'll see all the RootsMagic icons right here, and you can just click on RootsMagic and it'll start up. And I'll go ahead and do that. So I run it, and it kind of, let me close this down, and RootsMagic will come up, and I will say unlock it to the full version. I'll register later. And now we have RootsMagic running inside of our Mac without Windows. And if I look at the files, this is not some virtual hard drive within my own hard drive. This is my actual Mac Documents folder. If I look at my pictures, that is my Mac Pictures folder. It's not a separate hard drive. So I can just load my sample file, and up it comes, and I can expand it and make that a little smaller with our limited resolution. And now I want to show you one other useful tip. Notice how I have the RootsMagic icon is down here in my dock. If I right-click on that, or if I'm using the Magic Pad, you just tap with 2 fingers, and the menu will come up, and underneath Options, I'll choose Keep in Dock. And that makes the RootsMagic icon a permanent part of my Mac dock, so it will always be there. Just like any Mac application like iPhoto or GarageBand or iMovie, I'll have the RootsMagic icon there. I don't even have to start up crossover. In fact, let me go ahead and shut this down. Shut this all down. And I have my Mac icon here. I'll click on it. The little icon hops. I give it a second, and here it is, RootsMagic. And everything will work, including web search, family search integration, printing reports, everything. So hopefully that 0% of you, or actually the 2% of you out there that are using crossover or Wine, hopefully that number will increase quite a bit after this webinar, because this is definitely my favorite way of running the software on the Mac.
Okay,
I have questions.
Yeah, there's a couple of questions. One, will RootsMagic running under crossover recognize Windows RootsMagic files?
Okay, the answer to that is yes, because I know that's a concern because you have Family Tree Maker where the data files on the Mac are not compatible. They're completely different than the data files on Windows. That is not the case here. The files are exactly the same. So you can move your file back and forth between running it here or running it on a Windows computer. You could make a backup, put it on a flash drive, or email it to another person, and it's all compatible.
Okay, we'll wrap it up with this last question. And this all sounds very complicated. Why can't RootsMagic just sell a version of its software for Macs?
Oh.
You knew this one was coming.
Yep, we knew this one was coming. Okay, the answer to that down here is, will you ever have actual Mac versions of your software? And our answer is, it is certainly our intention. In fact, we have all the plans are underway even as we speak. We have many Mac users who'd love this, and we love to make our users happy. We're just waiting for the necessary tools, and we have some of them already, and the rest of them should be available in just the next few weeks, and technology to become available. And yeah, that should hopefully be in the near future. Now, that means don't expect a Mac version of RootsMagic before the end of the year. Okay, it's not going to be that easy. We want it to be good. We want it to feel like a Mac program. So just give us some time, but know that it is coming, and it is coming soon. I can't say what soon means, but it is coming soon. Okay, well, hopefully that's given you some ideas of what to do and different things you can try to get RootsMagic to run on your Mac. Like I said, that crossover, out of all of them, it took a few minutes to go through the whole thing, installing it, but it really isn't that hard. You just have to click OK a bunch of times. And that is by far my favorite option. And you can, don't forget, you can save $10 off of crossover if you follow that link, which is available at rootsmagic.com/Mac. Okay, and thank you for coming to our webinar.